I'm expecting this review to be quite a short one, but I must do it anyway. I just read Othello basically in one sitting. Like, I got up to make coffee and move places around the house, so I wasn't just like sitting in the same spot for a couple hours. But I did read it start to finish in a couple hours. This was my second read through, and the first time I read it, I don't know what possessed me, but I just loved it so much. Like, I loved Iago. I thought he was such a fantastic villain, and I have been saying for years and years that this is my favorite Shakespeare. And I do still really like it. I just wasn't quite as taken this time, I guess. At least not in like the fifth act. So up until then, I did still feel like Iago is such a masterful villain, where all that he does is lie and like trick everybody, but he does it so well that nobody knows what's going on. And it's all just miscommunication and everybody taking Iago for an honest man. Like, so many times they say, oh, he is so honest. Like, he'll say something to Othello and then leave, and Othello is then speaking just his thoughts aloud and saying that Iago is so honest and he can trust Iago, and thank goodness for Iago, when all that Iago is doing is cheating everybody. This one truly is a tragedy. It ends very tragically, for lack of a better word. So Act 5, especially Scene 2, definitely not my favorite of what I've read of Shakespeare, but the rest of the play honestly is amusing in some ways. And it really is just miscommunication, which, having read a few Shakespeare plays and seen a few, Shakespeare seems to rely heavily on miscommunication in most, not in most, I can't say that, but in many of his plays, he seems to rely heavily on miscommunication between the characters. Like, think of Romeo and Juliet. Why do they die in the end? Because of miscommunication, or because of lack of communication, not telling each other their plans. And this play is no different. It is full of just miscommunication or lack of communication. Like, if Othello and Cassio had just sat down and had a conversation, everything could have been avoided. But still, I do like this one. I do still think that Iago was a well-written villain. And I guess at the time that I read it, I think around that time I read To Kill a Kingdom, and I don't remember if I read it before or after, but I was so just let down, I guess, by the villain in that story, and how there seemed to be no rhyme or reason for why she was the villain, or why she was evil, or why she was doing the things she was. And then I read Othello, or read it before and was comparing the two, and just thinking of how Iago at least has reasons for what he's doing, and is thinking through what he's doing and has these plans. I at least can admire him as a villain, in that he's not like just a random plot device. It also is interesting to read a play or a story that is pretty much all about the villain, and that is from his perspective. Like, everything hinges on Iago, everything follows Iago. And yes, we do sometimes have scenes without him, but they're very rare, and they're still all because of him. Like, he says something to somebody, and so then we have this communication between these other two characters because of what Iago told one of them, or because of the strings that he's pulling. So it is all about Iago, and I just find that kind of fascinating. I don't really have much of a synopsis to give, other than it's just Iago trying to get what he wants. So the play opens with Iago being upset that someone else has been appointed Othello's lieutenant instead of himself, and the whole play is just him trying to kick that person out of that position and then take it for himself. That's his motivation, that's what spurs the play on, that's what moves the plot, is that Iago wants this promotion. And then chaos ensues. So it's still kind of a fun play, but it really ends so tragically. And I don't know, I didn't have the same feelings reading it. Like, I didn't finish it and think, oh yes, this is still my absolute favorite Shakespeare play. Because honestly, I think I like Romeo and Juliet more. And it pains me a little bit to say that, just because I had been such a hater on Romeo and Juliet for so many years until I finally read the actual play instead of like watching remakes or hearing about it. And then I read it and had so much fun reading it, it became my favorite. So that one is the next one I have to give a reread. I do still really enjoy Shakespeare. I really enjoy a good play, and Shakespeare's a great one to go to. And if you're thinking about picking up Shakespeare, but you're maybe intimidated by the old language and maybe feeling like you're not going to understand it. I'm not saying that everybody is going to feel that way. I'm not saying, not trying to like put that on you. But if that's the case, I still encourage you to read Shakespeare and get some sort of copy with a side-by-side. So this one doesn't have a complete side-by-side, but it has the original text and then like definitions for words and phrases that might not be as familiar to readers. So that is very helpful. I definitely found myself glancing back and forth. I also like the No Fear ones. I have a few copies of the No Fear Shakespeare, and these are great because it has the original text on one side and then it has a plain text paraphrase on the other side, or plain speech paraphrase. So these are really good also if you're just very intimidated by the language. You can like try to read the Shakespearean language, and if you're just not understanding, then there's plain text right here to help you out. So these are great too. But for most of his plays, my advice would be just try to read through and catch the basis of what's going on. And I don't think you have to understand every single word and every single line to still enjoy his plays and to understand what's happening. Some of his plays are definitely more complicated. Like, I need to give Macbeth a reread and pay better attention and maybe give myself a cast of characters, because I had a much harder time following along in that one. But of the other Shakespeare plays that I've read, that's basically how I read them. I go through and I don't worry so much about catching every single word, because that just bogs me down and then it doesn't really help me understand it because I'm trying to pick out everything and just losing the plot along the way. Whereas if I just read through and catch the basics, I can understand the plot fully, and then the next time that I go through, I can try to pick up on the subtleties better. So that would just be my recommendation if you're getting into Shakespeare and you're intimidated. Don't let it intimidate you. Pick up a No Fear Shakespeare copy, or just go through, give it a quick read through and get the main plot down. Go back through and get more of the humor and the subtleties and everything else. Also, in-depth commentaries can help, and watching the plays. The English chair at my college was not a fan of reading the plays because he felt they're meant to be watched. They were written as plays to be watched and not to be read. So he very rarely had anybody read Shakespeare because he very much so was a proponent of watching the plays. So that's also a way to get into Shakespeare. But I think Shakespeare's fun. As someone who loves dialogue and hates description, plays are absolutely perfect. And Shakespeare is humorous. Even in a tragedy like Othello, there are so many lines that are funny. From my experience so far, his plays all have a little bit of humor, even if they're not fully a comedy. But anyway, that's it for this review. I've just been wanting to give Othello a reread and put a review out on my channel for some sort of Shakespeare, and today seemed like the perfect day with the snow and all. So yeah, it was definitely fun to sit down and read Shakespeare in one go. I'll have to do that more often. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And comment down below if you've read any Shakespeare or if you've seen any plays or adaptations, and what's your favorite play if you have seen or watched one. And that's it for the video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!